first off, thanks everybody for coming tonight. This is the second part in the New York Winter webinar series. It's very player education focused. So we have top inter-county players from each code come on and share their thoughts and opinions just on a few questions our coaches and our players have submitted. So a big thank you to Calum Lyons from Ballyduff Waterford Hurler who's on tonight. So thanks a million, Calum.
Thanks, Mickey, for having me.
Calum's had a very successful career over the last number of years with Waterford. He's made the wing half back position his own, and we're delighted to share his thoughts on games development information tonight. So before further ado, we'll just get us going. So Calum, the first set of questions is just on your journey, so your player pathway. So from underage with Ballyduff Lower to Waterford Minors, did you come up through the development squad ranks, or how did that come about?
So I would have started in I suppose the first development squads would have been maybe under 12, and I suppose under 12 and under 13 you're probably gearing towards the Tony Forrestal tournament, which is under 14, and I can remember that we played 3 games in that Tony Forrestal. We drew 1 and we lost 2, and I suppose that was kind of the start of your kind of under 14. I suppose Tony Forrestal is the first kind of competitive like inter-county games I suppose you play. You know, you're not under 12, it's more like blitzes here and there, but when you get to the under 14, I suppose that's the start of it, and then it goes on to under 15, under 16, and then obviously minor. But I was never any great shape underage. Now I only kind of hit a bit of a growth spurt there when I was 16 or 17, so I was always on the B teams going up, and I never really made any big headways underage with the under 16s or the under 15s or even the Tony Forrestal, because I was always about 2 foot smaller than everyone else. So thankfully I got a bit of a growth spurt there in 4th or 5th year of school, and I suppose it probably helped me excel in the minor and so on. Yeah.
So was it the 15, 16-year-old mark you thought you came into your own, Calum, would be right in saying?
I suppose, yeah. As I say, Mickey, I was a mile smaller than everyone else, and I wouldn't be the strongest anyway still, and I definitely wasn't the strongest back then, I suppose. And but it was only a matter of time. I suppose my mother and father would be tall and broad enough too. Like, so everyone was always saying it's you'll be tall yet, you'll be tall yet, and I didn't believe them until I actually was, I suppose. But yeah, it was only about then where I started actually making real headways. I suppose I was always on the B teams growing up, and always wanting to be on the A teams, but just wasn't big enough, wasn't probably good enough either. But I suppose I stuck at it and got the call onto the Waterford minor team, and then I suppose the rest is history then.
Class. I'm still hoping for that growth spurt. Hopefully it comes.
It's on the way, mate. It's on the way.
We've another good question here, Calum, in terms of other sports, especially with American football and different other sports that got there, they encourage the use of playing other sports to build muscles in different areas. But was there other sports you played growing up, and is there any you found particularly beneficial to your own development?
I suppose I'd be from a kind of a small, tight-knit community. Like, the Ballyduff team that we have at the moment, we'd be all very close friends, and we'd be all a tight group. And I suppose, like, from a young age, you're going to school with all these fellas, and then you're playing the likes of soccer and hurling. I suppose hurling in the summer, and then a bit of soccer in the winter. And soccer, I always felt kept up to fitness in terms of to be obviously hurling in the winter. So, and I obviously enjoyed it as well, because, as I said, you're kind of playing it with your friends that you grew up with all along. So whether it's cricket or anything at all you want to play, if you're playing it with your friends that you've grown up with, sure, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to enjoy going up training, and the soccer pitch is only straight across the road from my house as well, I suppose. So it was handy enough. But I suppose a bit of soccer, Mickey, and I like to play a bit of squash as well. I suppose that was kind of kept me eye in some way for the hurling over the winter. I haven't played it in a while, but I used to love it now. I'd love to get back into it. It's a brilliant sport for keeping your fitness up and keeping your eye in. It's a fantastic game, I think.
That's class. And was there much Gaelic football as well, Calum, over the years, aye?
Yeah. So there's same as the hurling. We're a bow-coded club, so you commit to the football just as much as the hurling. But we wouldn't be much good at football now. I nearly have 2 left feet, I'd say. I just get the ball and run with it, and then I hand pass to the person who can kick it. But I know we all committed to football just as much as hurling. We just wouldn't be as gifted, I suppose, as a club, that is.
Mm-hmm. We have another one question here, and just I suppose you spent the summer in New York there in 2019. You played for Tip New York, Calum, and this is completely up to yourself. But was there anything you took away from that that summer abroad?
Well, I suppose hurling aside, I probably made best friends for life. Spent three months over there, and I suppose if not to name a few, but the likes of John O'Neill and these fellas, you'll never forget the couple of weeks or a couple of months you had with them, both off and on the field. Like, and you get to play, like, the standard of hurling over there is just as good as playing any club hurling at home. Like, like you're marking the likes of Johnny Glynn, and you're marking old intercounty hurlers, and where the sun is shining and it's 30 odd degrees and it's astroturf and the ball 13 aside as well, and the ball is just flying around. And I tell you, it's a high standard, and it's a lot higher than people imagine when you're going over there. You think, oh, I go over here now, and you'll run the show over, but it's not the case at all. You're playing against serious players at a serious pace, and you get to know these people as well. And as I said, hurling aside, like, one of the best cities in the world for 3 months with some of your best friends, like, is something I'll always remember, I suppose.
And just even on that now, just when it sort of came into my own head, Calum, I remember talking to one of the lads out there who's one of the younger lads who came up through the Tip team, and he even said, now, I mean, back in 2019, that you had such an incredible work rate even for a young lad coming out even from the first training session now. So it's nice that, when lads come out, they hold on to their roots, and they hold on to their values of hard work and effort. So
Well, like,
that
you see what goes into it from, like, the people that live out there, that, like, say Tip or Hoboken or whatever your club may be. That's their home club, like, and you see the commitment and the work and the training and all that goes into it, because it's their home club now, and they love that club and they do anything for it. So you don't want to be brought out there and then disrespect it in any way, So you try to give your best, as I try to always do, I suppose, when I go out into the field.
that's perfect. That's class. Calum. It was a hell of a final too now against Tip and Hoboken. Now, in fairness, I wish the live stream feature was back in 2019. But sure, if you come out for another summer, we'll get that in video. All right.
I'll see.
The next section of tonight is just you and your teams. Calum. So team culture and where Waterford went to this year compared to say 2 years ago. What sort of been changed over the last number of years to get where you're at, where you're contending, an All Ireland final?
Well, I suppose with regards to the last 20 odd years, Waterford have always been a good hurling team. They just never kind of got over the line. I suppose they're still waiting for us to get over the line. I suppose it's not a matter of, like, I know the lads, I wasn't involved in it, but the lads were in All Ireland final 2017 and in 2020, which is good that we've been in an All Ireland twice in the last 3 years, comparing to before 2008. We hadn't been in one in 50 odd something years, I think it was. But uh, so in that sense, I suppose we're achieving more than maybe had the Waterford teams in the past have, but we still have no silverware to show for it. So I suppose you can get to all the All Irelands you want, like, and if you win none, they're pointless. Like, All Ireland finals are for winning. So when you do get there, we'll have to start getting in the mindset of winning them, instead of just getting there and being happy with that, I suppose. But
Mm-hmm. But you definitely are, like, even like the last number of years, like a successful, one of the top teams to beat. But has that whether the management changed or players going in and out, has the same values and I suppose the team cohesion, has that always been there, or does it differ year in year out?
well, I suppose like, I wouldn't have that much experience with it. Maybe I'm only on the panel, I suppose, 2 years, so I can only speak for those 2 years. But your work, like, my first year, you're coming onto the panel not knowing what to expect. But geez, the drive from some of those players, like, my first year, I got the honor, like, and I call it an honor now, of playing with Brick Welsh, like, and to see his drive. And I think I'd know what number of season it was from. I think it was 14 or 15, and he was driving you on, like, and he's like, you grew up, like, I remember he signed my Hurley and I got pictures with him when I was 8 and 9, and next thing you know he's telling you to come on, push it, like. And a fella with that kind of drive, and that's just to name a few, like, there's other lads there, Jamie Barron and these fellas, like, watching them train now is just next level, like, they're crazy, just animals, just to push you and keep pushing you. And like, if that's not inspiring you, I suppose I don't know what could, like.
Hmm. And you saying like Brick Walsh even with that drive, but it leads us well on to the next point about like staying motivated. And I suppose this is nearly a two-part question, but how do you stay, motivated throughout the year? And then how did you find like lockdown as well over the last few months ago there? So just the first one, just how do you stay motivated across the year, Calum?
uh, I don't know. It's motivation. I think you just have to, like, you have to realize where water, like, you have to want it first of all, I suppose. And it's about wanting to know where Waterford need to go, and it's time enough now Waterford kind of pushed on and started winning a bit of silverware. And I think that alone has me motivated anyway. I'm mad to win. Even last year, prior to last year, I hadn't won any championship game with Waterford, minor, senior, or under 21, and it's just been heartache after heartache. And I've always been questioning, Jesus, what's the point? Like, and my first season, 2019, not only did we not win any games, but we got absolutely annihilated in every single one of them. And that can go one or two ways. It can push people over the edge, and they can just say, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, we're gonna have to get hammered in all the games. Like we got beat in Walsh Park, our own home ground, by 20 something points by Limerick in 2019, and that was probably the lowest point in my life in terms of hurling. And like, I remember just saying that, like, after that, it's either going to go one or two ways now for next year. You either cop yourself on, or you just throw the hat at it. And I think as a group we kind of said we'll have a go with this now, really, really, like, because like, we weren't that bad. We knew that we weren't that bad to be getting hammers, like we were getting hammered. And it was just a matter of us kind of pulling up our socks and kind of saying, like, let's who are we, kind of a thing. Like, let's really, what do we want Waterford hurling to be like? And prior to this year, I suppose there was a negative talk around Waterford hurling, and I suppose I definitely wanted to change anyway. And I suppose, to answer your question, Mickey, motivation comes from that, like, it comes from wanting to win, the will to win, and obviously the love of the game as well. Like, geez, my whole life I've wanted to play for Waterford, and now I'm here, so I may as well push myself to be the best I can be for Waterford. So I suppose that's one way of I look at being motivated.
That's first class. Calum, and how did you find over like lockdown? Was there anything um you did in particularly different to anybody else in terms of I don't know, going out for a puck, going out for a run? How did you find your lockdown experience, and how did you stay as motivated as you could?
Yeah, I suppose the lockdown was tough, very tough, and it was tough on everybody. And like, I try to not look at it as if, uh, like, if you start feeling sorry for yourself and you start thinking about this thing and that thing, and everything is so bad and I feel so sorry for myself, you'll do absolutely nothing, and it'll just be worse than yourself. I suppose I was lucky enough that my brother he's 3 or 4 years older than me, and he'd be a big hurling man as well. And I suppose the two of us kind of together, we kind of got through the work, and just every day you just get up and go at it. Like, you just have to count yourself lucky, um, that you're able to train. Like, it's like you look at what's going on in the world at the moment, and you see people can't, like, bury their loved ones, and people, they're shutting their businesses down, which they work so hard for. And if you're complaining about things like having to go running on your own, like, you're not worried about the more important things in life. And I suppose, just even saying like that, there's an individual, I said I'd give him a mention, one of the Dalton twins from Knockanoor, who was an up and coming hurling star for Waterford. Corner foot, he was 10 days out from minor championship, and he was in a car accident, and he's after getting a bad spinal injury. And when you look at and take those things into perspective, you can count yourself very, very lucky that you're able to go for these runs on your own, or as I said, I was lucky enough to have my brother to go with me. So when you look at those things, and even look at poor man, he done his cruise sheet a week out from championship, and so you just be thankful that you're able to go to run, and you're able to do it, more so than having to roll your eyes because you have to do it, I suppose. But
Yes.
in terms of staying focused, the hardest part I found over lockdown was probably the negativity towards championship and would it go ahead and would it not. And even a week before the first round of championship against Cork this year, we were told like there was rumours going, oh lads, this will be pulled, this will be pulled. And as a group, we all kind of agreed that we just stay in our own little bubble and try block all that out. And I suppose thankfully we did.
It's actually a fantastic way to think, and not even just in lockdown, Calum, but even just in life too. But the last one in this section, Calum, was just an individual practice, and this was sent in by a player. What are the best so, and this can be as simple as you want, but what are the best individual practices or skills that you work on your own time away from the team?
I suppose that varies from person to person. You know, I know myself, I'm not the strongest tool in the shed, I suppose, or so I try my best to work on just getting a bit stronger, I suppose. And you need to kind of, as a coach or as an individual, you need to not be afraid to ask your coach and say what do I need to work on, and obviously listen to your coaches. And if they say you need to work on your left, you're weak on your left, or just as simple as just going out to the back of the house and just banging the ball off the wall on your left until that comes right is what I think for individual practice. Anyway, as you say, it's called individual, and each individual has their own different strengths and weaknesses that they need to fix, I suppose.
Perfect. And I think that's like a very basic thing, but it all comes back down to the fundamentals and the fundamentals of the game done right. So our next section, Calum, just on coaches and coaches and coaching. So you've had quite a lineup of coaches you work with, from Derek McGrath, Park Fanning, Liam Cahill this year. And this can be a club coach or a county coach, but who's been your most influential coach, and what qualities really made them special or really gave you confidence to perform?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to be singling anyone out, but I suppose there's been clubs or there's been coaches through who've brought me up in terms of local clubs or local coaches, like my own father. I suppose he's the first person to put a hurley into my hand now, and he's when I was 3 or 4 years old, even probably sooner than that, I suppose. And he's the same fella now who's the manager of our local intermediate club. And he's still teaching me new things. So I suppose in terms of influential, I probably owe him a lot. But the more recently, I suppose, I was only with Derek for a couple of months, and I suppose Porrick, I owe Porrick a lot, because he was the one who spotted me at a Fitzgibbon challenge match, and he asked me to come into the water panel, and so for that reason I owe Porrick a lot. But I suppose there'll be a lot of talk about Liam Cahill's the way he trains and stuff, but one thing that I have took from Liam is that he just instilled me with a lot of self-belief that I probably might have been lacking in previous years. And I think all the lads can agree with me when I say that that's one of his best traits, is that he kind of has made us all realise that we're actually a good hurling team, and we should start believing in ourselves more, because I think that was something that's been lacking over the last couple of years. And I just think that, I suppose, I owe Liam a lot for just instilling a bit of belief in me and make me realise that I'm well good enough to be playing against some of these players that I played against last year.
And from a player's point of view, there's a lot of club coaches probably listening on at the minute, and probably go back through and listen to tonight or over the next week. But from a player's point of view, Calum, what one piece of advice would you give any coaches listening here tonight, whether they're working with an under-8 team or an adult team?
I'd say, I don't know, I don't have much experience with coaching as such, but one thing that I and I touched on already, I like to hear from a coach is just trying to fill your players full of confidence is one thing that I really find helpful, I suppose. The only reason people play hurling is for the enjoyment of it all, and if you're not enjoying it, you might as well forget about it. I don't think there's any enjoyment out of a coach giving a player a bollocking, and sometimes a bollocking might be needed and sometimes it's not needed. But I think constantly just trying to instill your players with belief gives players confidence and makes it more enjoyable, and which makes them come back down to the field. I know, like underage especially, it's all about just getting them down to the field, and if they're not enjoying it, they won't come. And it's all about enjoying it, as I already said. And I think to make the players, especially the young kids, enjoy it the most is by just instilling them full of confidence. And like if they make a mistake, tell them to do it again and to do it again and keep doing it again until they stop making that mistake, and just keep giving them good confidence and keep encouraging. I know that's just sounds a bit basic, but I think encouragement, and even some you might have a weaker player, and like if they're trying really hard, like really just let them know they're trying, that you can see they're trying really hard, and that like you're appreciating their work, and keep at it and keep at it, like. And I think that'll just make it more enjoyable for the individual, and they'll keep coming back, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. It probably goes back to your own experience too. I mean, you said yourself you didn't feel you had your true potential to maybe 15, 16. And we're always in the B team coming up. So without those underage coaches instilling you with confidence and a bit of self belief, you probably wouldn't be the player that you are now, Calum. So that's a great point.
Yeah, I just think there's like I don't need to be going too far off topic here now, Mickey. But
You're right. Go ahead.
there's I like there's a lot of kind of anxiety in the game that you wouldn't see, and I recall I started on the under-21 team, say in 2017, and then was dropped in 2018 when I was up to the age, and I was rightfully dropped 100%. But I think the reason I wasn't playing well, I was going grand with the club, and then I turned around on the under-21 team, and I'd be overthinking the life out of it, and a lot of lads always take the piss out of me for I'd be wicked for overthinking. But I think just there's a level of anxiety in hurling that a lot of people don't see, like. And I recall kind of seeing a ball when I was playing under 21 and thinking, oh my god, all I want to do is play for Waterford, and don't mess this up, and I see the ball in front of me, and then I start going, oh my god, there's the ball, instead of just going over and picking it up. And sure, no one else knew what was going on, only myself, about all just this overthinking. And it was only till I kind of went over to Boston then in 2018 for summer, then after we got knocked out at 21. And I suppose when I came back from Boston, then I kind of realised that there's however 7 billion people in the world, and about 0.01% of them even know that this match is going ahead. Why are you overthinking it? Like, why? Like, you start to realise about this whole new world over in America, and how big the world is, and how little, like, how when I was playing at the under-21, I was thinking, Jesus, there's 7 billion people watching this now, and if you make a mistake here, the whole place is going to think you're useless. Like, but it was only till I kind of realised then, and I suppose Kieran Bennett gave me a good bit of advice that because I remember the first league match then with in 2019, my first ever, I suppose, competitive game at Waterford, and I said to Kieran Bennett, I was absolutely shaking out on the bus on the way up, and I said to him, like, do you get nervous? And he was like, no, and he played in the All-Ireland 2 years previous, and I was like, even for that. And he said it's not worth losing sleep over. And I suppose that always stuck with me, and I always try to remind myself, if you're losing sleep over it, you're in trouble. So I think overthinking games is another thing that you might notice in a young player that you're coaching, and I suppose it's just something that you just need to keep an eye on, and because it has a big impact. Sorry, I went off on one there now.
No, you're perfect. Sorry, I'm currently sorry, that was a bit of a mistake on my half there. But and just when we're talking about that, Calum, I know it's not the thing, but we chatted a bit beforehand. But with that, like, sort of less pressure. But did you find this season past, playing in front of no crowd? Do you think that helped the Waterford team as a whole, or what's your thoughts on that there? Just
it's hard to know that, Mickey. There's definitely pluses and there's good things and bad things about the crowd, I suppose. As I said to you, like, I made plenty of mistakes. This year, and if I was one, like, I've always said to myself, geez, if there's a crowd there, like, would you be leaving some of that, the negative shouting in? Because the negative shouting is there, whether as much as you wish it wasn't, it is still there. And so without the crowd, you're only the only person you're battling with is your own head. You're saying, that you slipped up there or whatever. But you'd miss the crowd as well. There's a serious buzz in atmosphere. And I remember after the Kilkenny game this year when we won, like, you wouldn't even know. You do know that the Waterford fans are buzzing at home celebrating, but you wouldn't actually see it. So as much as you'd love to see it, like my mother and father met me in Croke Park after the match in against Kilkenny, and like just to see the buzz on their face, I suppose, made it all worth it. But you know that the fans are cheering at home, but I suppose you don't see it, so you definitely miss that part. All right.
Mm-hmm. Well, trust me, the fans miss going to the games too. If there's any
Yeah, sure
consolation.
do. Yeah.
Um, and we're just on to the last slide. And again, guys, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat feature, and we'll get to them at the end. Okay. So a few personal questions that were sent in. Calum, what in your opinion is one of the most important skills of the game of hurling?
High feeling would probably be one of my favorite ones. As I said, probably growing up when I was 2 foot smaller, probably was one of my least favorite ones. But I've learned to like it, I suppose, a little bit more. But I think we done it well against Kilkenny, and I suppose we probably could have made the difference between winning and losing the game was high field, and it's just winning primary possession. If you can win 60 or 70% of the puck, it's like you're probably in the driver's seat to win the match, I suppose. And I just feel it's a whole skill in its own. It's definitely the hardest skill to do in hurling, and I think it's an impressive one. And I always enjoy to see it as well, watching matches. So definitely a high feeling, I suppose.
And is there a way you'd practice that by yourself, Calum? Again, just hitting off the wall, or go out the field, hit it up in the air, and do your best, jump and catch the first time? Is that how you'd practice that sort of skill? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm lucky enough that my local club, Ballyoff, they recently built a very impressive ball wall. Like, and there's plenty of drills you can do to work on it, and I think it's a technique that takes training. There's no way you can learn, because it's all about timing and stuff like that, and it's something that doesn't really come naturally. It has to be worked on. So there's plenty of drills to do it, and I suppose the ball work is a good place to start.
You mentioned there just about nerves before the game and stuff. Calum, is there any routines, or do you have any superstitions or that you do to stay focused before a big game, whether it be inter-county or whether it be club?
I always try to keep the same kind of routine. I wouldn't change my routine for a club match as I would the an inter-county game, I suppose. But they weren't. I wouldn't be big on superstitions. I know some of the lads are very bad. I've heard some mad ones now, but no, I wouldn't have any superstitions. And in terms of routines before every match, I try to do the same thing as I would any other game. I don't try to think about it or overthink it too much. As I said, overthinking has worked negatively for me before, so I just try to just think about the game when it's in front of me. I suppose just before I sleep now, I would obviously, if you didn't even want to think about it, it would be in your head. But I try to meet the same people beforehand and just keep the right people close to you, I suppose, and the same routine in terms of food and that as well. So I don't really change it up.
Fair enough. So there's no rabbit's foot or anything in your kit bag or anything out there. Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
there's no magic. There's no
Sorry, sorry to disappoint people. Sorry, folks. And the last piece there is yeah. Oh, sorry. What would you be your biggest sort of sporting achievement to date, Calum?
I suppose I don't have a lot of medals behind my name, I suppose. But we had a good win this year in the summer against our local rivals, I suppose, in the East Intermediate, and we got to the Intermediate County Final, which we were unlucky not to win. I grew up watching Ballyoff Lower play senior hurling for 10 odd years, and they went through a bad patch there over 2 or 3 years. They fell down into a shock door basically, and we were down junior hurling then for 2 years, and like to be in a county final then and be so close to going back up senior, I suppose it was heartbreaking, but to win the Eastern final was a huge achievement, and it was one of the happiest days I ever had in a hurling field. I suppose so. That was probably my biggest achievement thus far.
And the last question for me, can we be happy enough to know is say if there's any players listening at the minute, what would be the best piece of advice that you could give to them?
I suppose it goes back to probably what I was saying earlier about overthinking, and I think that it was definitely just something that had a very negative impact on my hurling career, kind of growing up anyway, and it was just something that kind of really stopped me from performing. And like I knew I was probably good enough to be playing, but yet I found myself on the bench, and it was just literally wasn't down to lack of practice. Like I could sit here and say, oh, practice, 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 which most people who really want to play for their county will do anyway. But I had all the practice done, and then when I went out to the field, then I froze because I was just overthinking and I was anxious. But I think it's managing your sports psychology. I think is very important, and that's what I was trying to say. I suppose get at in terms of not overthinking and not being too nervous and believing in yourself and having a bit of confidence. But that confidence probably is instilled in them from their coaches, as I already alluded to earlier. But just believe in yourself, I suppose. If you have the practice done and you know you're good enough, just go out and show it. Doesn't matter who's in the stand or who's behind the cameras watching. Just go out and go at it.
Calum, that's all the questions from me. I'm gonna click in to see if we have any questions. I think we have one or two questions sent in there. Simon just asked, "Hi Calum, what fitness tests do you think give the correlation to championship fitness?" It's quite a technical question, but that's a good one, Simon.
Simon Gillespie, I'm with New York, and I'm training a few teams myself, and I know everybody hates fitness tests. It's probably one thing that you either dread or you don't, But what do you think? Like, people do like things like the Bronco test, or they do the bleep test, or they do a mile run or a 5K run. Is there any of them in particular you use as your own measure for your own fitness?
Well, personally, Simon, I feel there's no better fitness than match fitness, and there's no better way of practicing match fitness by playing matches. I think, like we were lucky enough with the club there last year that we've had a lot of issues with the club about kind of fellas travelling, and I put my hands up. I was one of them too, but no one was gone anywhere last year, and we managed to have a couple of 15 out 15 games where we included a couple of minors, and I definitely think that went a long way with us being fit, because you're mimicking what you're going to do on the match day. So if you get me, you're practicing for matches by playing practice matches, and that's how I think you get fit, because it's hard to mimic. Like, I know you can run, you can do shuttles all day, but in a hurling match, you're not going to be running out 5 yards, turning, running out 10 yards, turning, running out 15 yards. So obviously it has to be done, because you can't be playing matches all the time. But I think the best way of practicing match fitness is by playing as many matches as you possibly can, because you're mimicking the same movements and stuff like that. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Simon.
Thanks for that.
We've another question there, Calum, from John O'Flynn there from Canada. So that's good shout out there, John. John just wants to know, Calum, have you been introduced to any particular skills or games or activities that have been incorporated into hurling from other sports?
Yeah, I suppose, John, I kind of alluded to it earlier about squash, when I was playing a bit of squash. It's a long time ago, and as I said, I'd love to get back into it, but it's definitely for your hand-eye coordination. Like, squash is a fantastic sport. The speed of the rubber ball that flies around, and I know Lyons, who's on the Waterford team with me. He's an All-Ireland underage handball player, and I know DJ Carey had history with handball as well. And I think for the hand-eye coordination, those kind of games like squash and handball have a real similar kind of skill, I suppose, for hand-eye coordination.
And is there any relates more to like Gaelic football and stuff, Calum, but like in terms of like, trying to think, like maybe basketball or hockey or anything out there, has anything been brought into hurling training from Waterford or Ballyduff over the last number of years? Not really. Probably reflects more than Gaelic football and basketball and stuff.
Mixing the sports, obviously, as I said now, Mickey, I wouldn't be much of a Gaelic footballer, so I can't really give anyone much advice on that. But I suppose Gaelic football, you had to be extremely, extremely fit to play it, no matter what grade it is, your junior, intermediate, your seniors. So that was one thing I did find that I did get out of football, was probably adding a bit of fitness to it, because it's a tough sport, because it's a slower ball. In hurling, you can hit the ball a lot further than you can kick a football. So I suppose fitness is one thing that I take out of football anyway.
Oh, perfect. Cal, I think that's all. That give it another maybe 20-30 seconds to do your end. But listen, thanks very, very much for taking the time out of your evening to come on and chat with us. You haven't changed since 2019. You're still the gent and humble lad that was in Ned's that time. So 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 listen, thanks, Ryan. I took a good few things away from tonight, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have as well. So, folks, this will be out in the YouTube channel over the next number of days, and that's it for us tonight. So again, the last word with Calum. Thanks, Ryan, for your time, and best luck with 2021 with Waterford and your club.
Lovely, mate. Thanks very much. Thanks for listening as well.